Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Board Game Brunch, my live Q&A that I do on the last Sunday of every month in the morning, so you can grab your breakfast food or your brunch food or whatever else you want to eat and hang out with me for an hour. So I'm really happy that I already see some people hanging out in the, oh, what? Maybe. Do you see this dog? Do you see her? She is so dirty. So I just got back from a cruise yesterday, and my friend was watching our dogs, and maybe here, she got into every little pile of dirt she could find in my friend's yard, basically. Isn't that right? And you wanted to be in my lap before, but now you don't? I don't know. Maybe she doesn't. She's so dirty, though. Do you see this? Look at her. She's like gray. She needs a bath, and she's going to get one later. But I figured she could still be on the stream if she wanted, because people tend to like hanging out and seeing the doggos. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to stay or do you want to go? You want to go. Okay. And there goes maybe. So good morning, everybody. Hi, Ambi. I see you in the chat. I am open to taking any questions about the board games I've been playing recently, the cruise I just got back from, or anything else that you all feel like asking. So okay, well, talking is fun. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat. I do have some questions that were previously asked of me that I never got around to or didn't fully answer. So I may start with those, but Ambi asked in the chat, how was the cruise? Any seasickness? I believe I was lucky in that I didn't really experience any nausea or seasickness at all. What's interesting is I actually feel worse now than I did on the boat. I don't remember what the name of the phenomenon is, but basically, even though I'm back on land and have been since yesterday morning, it's been about 24 hours since the boat docked. I feel like everything is moving still, and it's more off-putting than being on the boat and feeling like everything was moving, because I think my brain knew that made sense and this doesn't. And I know that that's common to be on a boat and then be on land and feel like that things are still moving. So if you see me swaying a little bit, that might be why. I don't know. I feel like I'm swaying all the time, but I don't know if I actually am or not. So yeah. Jenny says she too has an animal in her lap right now, and I think that's awesome. I think everyone that can be around animals should be. They're good for your health, and they're just cuddly and wonderful. So Michael Junker asks, any plans to do BlitzCon again next year? So for those of you who don't know, Ambi and I have done a little mini convention in the Bay Area the past 2 years, which is where she lives. And we are not certain if we're going to be doing that again this coming year, only because with the timing of other events that we have to be at and some other things, we don't know how much we're going to be involved with that little convention. It is, to my knowledge, still happening, but just might not have our name on it anymore. Ambi's friends are still probably going to be hosting a really cool event in the Bay Area in February. I don't know if it's going to still be President's Day weekend or not. Ambi might be able to drop more info in the chat, but if we're not affiliated with it anymore, it's not because anything bad happened. It's just that, we obviously don't want to put our podcast's name onto something if we're not going to be involved with it, because that would just be silly. And we also don't want to, trick people into thinking it's something that it isn't. So I believe the event is still happening. Whether it will have the Blitz name on it or not, I don't believe it will. But both Ambi and I are going to be on the Dice Tower cruise, which is in January. And thankfully, I didn't get seasick on this cruise, because if that had happened, I think I would be less looking forward to the cruise in January at this point. And yeah, so let's see here. Oh, shepherd's pie and Mountain Dew instead of waffles and juice. You know what? I think you should enjoy brunch and lunch or whatever else. See, because technically lunchtime is brunch time, Brand. And I feel like you would know that. But I guess in theory, if we had anyone watching over in the UK, then it would be well past lunchtime right now. It would be more into getting closer to dinner time. So I think anyone should eat whatever they want, but the Dice Tower doesn't typically do shows in the morning or on the weekend. So that's why I theme my Q&A around brunch, because it is one of my favorite things. And because a lot of the Dice Tower shows center around food, which is just funny. And I wanted to continue it. So let's see. At church today, the pastor talked about road trips and your own life journey. What is your favorite road trip song? And what would your personal life journey song be? Ooh, that's deep. I don't know if I could come up with stuff on the fly. Is it funny that the first song that comes into my mind for the road trip one isn't actually the correct answer for me, but it's 500 Miles by the Proclaimers because of How I Met Your Mother. If anyone's seen that show, that song plays heavily into it quite a bit. My own road trip song. You know what? I think it would actually be the, hold on, I have to look up. It's the Jump On It song, but not the version, not the normal version, the weird secondary version that lists a bunch of cities. And I'm going to have to look it up now, because my sister and I used to sing that one a lot. So it's Sir Mix-a-Lot. It's just called Jump On It. I know there's 2 different versions of that song, though, so I'm not quite sure what the differences are. But he does mention Kansas City in it, and that is I grew up in the Kansas City area, so my sister and I really liked that. So I'd say that would be my road trip song. My personal life journey song. I'll go with Ironic by Alanis Morissette. Even though a lot of the things that she mentions in that song aren't really that ironic, and everyone knows that. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things in life that are ironic, and they tend to amuse me or give me pause. So that's my off-the-cuff answer. I could probably come up with something better if I thought about it longer, but sea legs, illusion of motion felt on dry land after spending time at sea. Yes, that is what I'm experiencing. I'm sitting right now, and I still feel like I'm swaying a lot. So I put this back in the background. I don't know how well it comes through on the stream, but while we were in, let's see, which city was it? Puerto Vallarta. We went to a glass gallery and got to meet a glassmaker. He actually does a lot of really cool stuff with glass with lenses in it. And I'm going to see if I can look it up so I can put a link in the chat, because it's actually quite beautiful. This piece is one of his less expensive things, and it doesn't have any lenses in it, but it's just, a piece of glass that has sand and water trapped in it, so the sand can fall. I'm trying to get it to go so in a way that you guys will actually be able to see it more easily. We'll see if that works. But let's see. I'm going to see if I can look up. Yes, Glass Gallery EM. Look at him with a good website and everything. So a lot of, yes. Oh, it's got perfect. It's got pictures of the bubble lenses. These pieces of glass that he did are beautiful. And so if anybody likes glass work, I'm going to put a link in the chat, just so you can look at what I'm talking about, because it's kind of hard to explain. But he hand carves multiple lenses into a single piece of glass and then displays it. He takes reclaimed auto parts and driftwood and other things that he's found, and he turns them into works of art. And he spoke very passionately about the things that he builds, and I loved them. And I wished that I could have bought a really large and expensive piece. There was one that was just gorgeous, and it was like $2,000. So obviously did not buy that, but they're really cool. So I figured in case anyone else likes glasswork, maybe you would enjoy that. Alex Silver says, "Who is this girl?" Well, hi, Alex. I am Crystal. I am one of the video contributors on the Dice Tower. I do Dice Tower Tonight every 2 weeks with Tom and Eric, and I contribute to some other little shows, and I'm working on a game show. I know I keep saying that. Things have been, it's harder to organize than I anticipated, but I am still working on it, and I'm really, really excited about it. So in theory, that will be coming soon. And I've talked about doing some game reviews on the channel as well. I know that there are a lot of reviews on the Dice Tower channel, and so, but I think my opinion on especially certain games that aren't being covered as much by other reviewers might be valuable, or covering some older games that maybe the Dice Tower hasn't looked at in a little while. I have a kind of a format that I want to follow when I do those, but it is really hard to have a regular day job and also have a job like this where it's not my normal day job and it's not the majority of my time, but I'm trying to keep up with it. So let's see here. Oh, Jacob said the same thing. I've been watching Dice Tower a lot, but I don't think I've seen you before. Why is that? Well, you must be missing Dice Tower Tonight at the very least. And Ambi and I have shown up in some other places. So Tom just added Ambi and I to the video team in July. So it hasn't been that long that we've officially been part of the channel. And we are kind of slowly integrating ourselves into things. We didn't want to jump in, both feet completely right away. And also, we're not located in Florida, so we can't do content with the main Dice Tower contributors, at least not regularly. But I'm sure we will probably be recording something on the cruise in January. And we did some stuff with them back in July. So if you go back to the coverage for Dice Tower Con, Ambi and I were referees for a live game of Magical Athlete. I will admit it kind of went off the rails a little bit, but it's fun to watch anyway. And we were also part of the live board game breakfast that happened at Dice Tower Con, and a couple of other shows as well. Ambi has also been putting out her 18XX series here on the Dice Tower. And if you haven't checked out those videos, I highly recommend them. She is doing a wonderful job explaining what 18XX games are, if you've never played them before, which ones to try first, and some other really helpful information. So I know a lot of people have heard of 18XX games, but they don't really know what they are. And Ambi is doing a great job of helping introduce those games to new people. So make sure, head over to the Dice Towers channel, which you're already on, but go search for Ambi's 18XX series of videos and check those out. Jenny says, my background is super interesting. Is it actually small tiles glued together? No, it is actually a piece of plastic. It is just a printed design. I wonder if I could, let's see if I can pull it up. Oh gosh, I'm going to knock the whole thing down, aren't I? Probably. It is literally just a piece of plastic that has a design printed on it. I bought it on Amazon because you can see underneath was a green screen that I made out of some poster board. Actually, it does look like it might fall. That'll be a fun thing if that happens. So, yeah, I just didn't want the green screen behind me all the time because I knew that on the internet, having a green screen behind me could end up being a precarious situation that would possibly not be so good. So does anybody have any questions? Oh, wait, there's some more. I did not scroll down in the chat. Or scroll up, I suppose, that one. Any hints toward my top 10 games of 2018? Do you have some strong contenders? That is an excellent question. I mean, Castell is definitely going to be near the top of my list, for sure. Castell struck me in a way that very few games do when I first played it. And I was privileged to be taught the game by its designer back in February, Aaron Vanderbeek, and it was his first game that he's ever designed. And it kind of shocked me that that was the case because it seems so brilliant. And it is a very Euro style game, which is not a thing that I typically gravitate toward, but the theme is integrated so seamlessly into the mechanics that I just fell in love with it instantly. And honestly, the idea of the Catalonian human towers that you're building in that game is just a really interesting theme too. Like and I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole watching videos on YouTube of actual human towers in Catalonia, and it's fascinating. Yeah, Castell is great. As far as other top 10s for this year, other games that might be in my top 10, it is hard to think off the top of my head. I would say that, interestingly, Sprawlopolis from Button Shy Games might actually be up there, which is weird to say. It shouldn't be weird to say. An 18-card game can be just as good as other games. I've learned this, but it's still hard to like think that. But it's a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players, and it's 18 cards, and it's brilliant, and it's fun every time. I actually took it with me on the cruise, and my husband and I played it in a couple of different places on the boat and when we were in Mexico, because it's so small and it's so easy to just bust out and play anywhere. Let's see here. So what is my favorite board and my favorite card game? So I will give a plug for my top 100 games list that I put out earlier this year. That is over on the Board Game Blitz YouTube channel. Although I imagine in future years, my top 100 and Ambi's top 100 will likely end up on the Dice Towers channel instead. So keep an eye out for those. Maybe it'll be a Kickstarter stretch goal for me to do another top 100. So make sure that you support the Dice Towers Kickstarter once that launches in 2019. But my favorite board game of all time is Star Trek Ascendancy, with, I think my top 4 are really kind of representative of what I really love. And my top 4 are Star Trek Ascendancy, Battlestar Galactica, Near and Far, and Runebound. Specifically Runebound 3rd edition, but I got into Runebound during the 2nd edition, and I really like 2nd edition too. I haven't actually played it in a long time, but if anybody has any friends at Fantasy Flight Games, please tell them to release new maps for Runebound 3rd edition, because that was one of my favorite parts of the 2nd edition of Runebound, was that the expansions came with new maps and new boards. So it wasn't just new enemies and new bosses and new characters that you could play. All of that's great, but in 3rd edition Runebound, you're playing on the same board every time, and you know where all the quests are, and it seems kind of, it doesn't ruin it, but it would be more exciting if I could play on different boards. So tell Fantasy Flight to get on it. Whoever out there in board game land that knows someone at Fantasy Flight. Yeah. Now, as far as a favorite card game, what's funny is I don't actually know if I know what card game ended up highest on my list. So we're going to look up my top 100 list real quick, because I have that somewhere that I can pull up, and then we will see what card game ended up highest on my list. Assuming I can find it. Well, I actually haven't pulled up my top 100 list in quite a hot minute. Let's see. Top 100 games list. Okay, so I guess it depends on how you define a card game, because there are a couple of games in my top 10 that are almost entirely card-based, but I consider them to be board games. Pursuit of Happiness is one of them. That is my number 5 game of all time, and there's a lot of cards in that, but it's a board game. It's a worker placement game for the most part. And then The Networks is my number 7 game, and that is also almost entirely played with cards. But again, I wouldn't really consider that a card game. So going farther down, still looking. I've gotten all the way to number 20, and everything is still board games. Going farther down, Wordsy really isn't a card game either. You know what? I think number 29 was probably the one that counts most clearly as a card game, and that would be Race for the Galaxy. Race for the Galaxy was actually one of the very first games, modern board games or card games, that I was introduced to back when I got into the hobby in 2007. And I still love it. I think Race is a great game. So I guess that would be my favorite card game, which I didn't really realize, but that makes sense since I like it so much. I will admit, though, I have not played with a lot of the expansions, and I would like to at some point. There's a slight barrier to entry with that game. Everybody tends to have a little bit of trouble with the iconography, and then if you add in the expansions, obviously more stuff, more information to teach. So I typically teach the base game only. And really, the base game is great. You don't need the expansions to enjoy that game. So one of these days, I'll get around to trying it with all of the stuff. Let's see. Somebody said, hello, I want to know about Solomon Kane. Love the design, story, and mechanics, 1 character and 4-player game co-op. I don't know what Solomon Kane is. So I hopefully someone in the chat can chime in, because I don't actually know what that is. I could Google it, I suppose, but I wouldn't be able to give you any helpful information aside from what I'd be able to look up on the internet. So Jenny said, I just started playing the graphic novel adventures thanks to Tom's review. Have you played those? Thoughts? I have not, and I'm kicking myself for not backing that Kickstarter, because when it was on Kickstarter, when it was still live, I saw them and I went, oh, that sounds like something I would probably like. But if I remember correctly, those were on Kickstarter before I had played Legacy of Dragonholt. So I hadn't recognized how much the choose your own adventure style of board game was going to appeal to me. I've never really played any of them before Legacy of Dragonholt. So what's funny is I own Tales of the Arabian Nights. I got it kind of for free when a local board game cafe that I was patronizing closed down. I had a year-long membership, and so the owner kindly let me take some games as recompense for my membership that I wasn't going to get to fulfill. And one of the ones that he gave me was Tales of the Arabian Nights, but I've still never played it. So I think the choose your own adventure style of games is something that I really love, and I'm very excited to try more of them. Legacy of Dragonholt was amazing, which is why it ended up as number 8 on my top 100 list, even though I literally I played Legacy of Dragonholt as I was making my list, and I recognized as I was playing it that it was going to be very, very high because it was so much fun. And it's one of the only games on my top 100 list that I've played exclusively solo. And I know some people that have enjoyed playing it with others, but I think playing Legacy of Dragonholt solo is a really, really enjoyable experience. So I highly recommend that to anybody. But yeah, those graphic novel adventures, especially, Tom's review of them only made me want them more. I'm very excited to try those out at some point. So I'm going to have to get my hands on those. Okay, so Christopher Herkner brought up a good point about Star Trek Ascendancy. He says, I see a lot of people have a problem with the randomness of Star Trek Ascendancy. You don't feel it makes it tough to play. That is a good point. Although a lot of the people that I've spoken with personally that have brought that up, and not all of them, but a lot of them are missing one of the key parts of the setup of the game. So based on how many players you have, when you set up the planet deck to have planets and phenomena and whatnot come out at the beginning of the game, you're supposed to set it up so that a certain number of tiles at the top of the stack are all good things, or they're planets, they're safe areas. You don't know what civilizations you're going to find on those planets because those come from a different deck, the card deck. But a lot of people I've spoken with didn't realize they were supposed to be setting up the planet deck with good stuff on the top. And so they were randomizing all the phenomena and the bad things right into the top of the stack. So then theoretically, when they would start the game, they would flip over a phenomena and it would be right next to their home planet. And it would make everything harder because getting through phenomena is often difficult in Star Trek Ascendancy. So my first piece of advice is make sure to go through the setup rules and ensure that you're doing all of it right. That being said, there is still an aspect of randomness to the game that can be hard to overcome. I think one way to kind of remove that aspect, if it's something that your group or you in particular don't enjoy, is to play with the Borg expansion and make the game more about beating the Borg than beating each other. I think if you kind of co-op it a little bit, and then it's a little more enjoyable if, in theory, the areas around your homeworld end up being a little more treacherous than other people's. But I think one of the key aspects of that game is just exploring a lot early and trying to find good resources near your homeworld as much as possible, and then build up, your areas around your homeworld, make yourself strong, and then go out and fight other people. I've found that when people try and stretch themselves too thin, it can be difficult to come back if you suffer some big losses. But some of the expansion races actually encourage spreading yourself thin. Like the Cardassian race, for instance, you have to have a ship in orbit of every planet that you have nodes on to be able to produce resources, because the Cardassians are mean, and so they have to monitor all the people that they've taken over. And so that makes it really hard, because when you have to spread your fleet thin like that to be able to collect resources, it can be difficult. I do not enjoy playing as the Cardassians for that reason. But yeah, I think this kind of applies to a lot of games. Read the setup rules. Even if you're really familiar with a game and you've set it up a bunch of times, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting the setup right. I personally have messed up rules in games that I've been playing a long time. I learned a rule wrong. Either someone else taught it to me wrong, or I misunderstood it the first time I read it in the rule book. And then I've just propagated that error over and over again. So I think maybe it's a good piece of advice to take a game that you love and you know really well, and reread the rule book at a certain point. Just make sure you're getting all the nuts and bolts of it. And I will also say, if you're messing up a rule in a game you love, but it's fair for everybody that's playing the game and everyone's having a good time, don't stress about it. Like, I know people who kind of freak out if a rule gets missed or if something's being played wrong. I have had moments where I was that person. And I've tried to learn that while I definitely want to experience the game the way the designer intended it for it to be experienced, I also recognize that playing games is about having fun. And if everyone is having fun, then is it that important that we're getting the rules right? I mean, I'm going to try to, but if we find out we messed up something, I'm not going to stress out about it. Or I'm going to try not to, I should say. Because I know I've had those moments where I'm like, oh my God, we messed up a rule. Everything is ruined. Oh! How's our sand doing back here? Those bubbles look like they've kind of put a little damper on things. Let's see if we can get it moving again. It takes a while if I don't help it along. But I got this for free, so that was kind of nice. We'll see if we can hear. If I move them all to one side, I bet. Oh yeah, there we go. Sand's moving now. Also, I'm more tan than I usually am. I know that to most of you, this still probably looks very, very pale, but I got a little bit of a tan while I was in Mexico, which is weird for me because I am usually quite white. So, all right, I need to scroll down in the chat. I've been missing some things. Oh, sorry, Chris. I missed the second part of your message earlier. You asked because you're a big Star Trek fan. You've always been on the edge of getting Ascendancy, but the reviews about it scare you a little. I mean, that's a completely valid point. I also am a big Star Trek fan. I think most people that watch my live Q&As know that already. I talked about going to the Star Trek convention here in Las Vegas back in August. I'm always willing to answer questions about Star Trek, even though Tom rolls his eyes at me whenever it comes up during Dice Tower tonight. But yeah, I think especially for people who love Star Trek, Ascendancy is a great game because it incorporates the aspects that you know and love about Star Trek into a really good game. And yes, there are moments where luck of the draw can screw over somebody, but that's the case in a lot of games. And so I feel like you can mitigate things if you want, or you can change up, maybe instead of putting, 6 planets at the top that are safe, maybe put 8 or 10. Do whatever you want, and you shouldn't have to change the rules to make a game fun. But Ascendancy has really thematically wonderful moments in it, and it's a blast. So if you're a Star Trek fan, at least try it out. And the Borg are great as far as expansions are concerned because it will allow you to play with anywhere from 1 to, if you have all of the other expansions, up to 5 players. I've never played with 5. I would like to, though, at some point. So let's see. I'm scrolling back up because I missed a whole bunch of things. Actually, I'm going to pop the chat out because I think it'll be easier for me to keep up with if I have it in a separate window. All right, let's see here. Do I have some superhero powers like invisibility or ability to eat a large amount of cakes? I feel like there was something that I said that inspired that comment, but now that I've gotten away from it, I don't know what it was. I don't think I have any superhero powers. The only one I have, I'm not double jointed, but I can reach my entire back with this arm. Like most people, I guess, can't. I don't know. I can't really show you. Oh gosh, I'm gonna see if I can turn the chair. Oh no, that table almost went over. Did you see that? So like I can fold my arm backwards and put it on my back, which I guess is not normal. So that's what I'm going to call my superhero power, which isn't really a superhero power, but I'm going to say it is. And I'm really glad that this whole table did not just like completely fall over. Yoink. We'll just move this back over this way. Everything is fine. Speaking of near and far, I know I've heard you mention somewhere that you did a playthrough of that with the co-op expansion. Is that posted somewhere? So the playthrough that I did of near and far was on, or is, I don't think we archived the videos. It was on Twitch, on the Board Game Blitz Twitch channel. My friend Kathy and I played through it, and so we streamed it live on Twitch, and we don't archive our videos on our Twitch channel, so I don't believe it is anywhere that it can be watched now, and I'm really sorry. I think that was kind of back before I had realized that I should start maybe archiving those and posting them elsewhere. I have talked with Tom about doing some live stream games on the Dice Towers channel. And if the Dice Tower was ever on Twitch, there too, theoretically, or here on YouTube. So I would like to do that. I like doing live content more than produced stuff, only because it's easier for me to do, because I don't have to do any production work after the fact. I don't have to do any video editing or anything like that. And I can do video editing, but obviously it just takes more time. And since I'm trying to fit all of this stuff in with the rest of my life, live content seems to work better for me. And honestly, I enjoy it more. I like being able to talk live with you people on the internet. So it's more fun for me. I apologize. My allergies are going haywire. So I'm going to blow my nose real quick. It's going to be gross. Hold on. Maybe I can mute my microphone so that way you all don't have to. Let's mute my mic. And I'm back. Okay. Sorry. My apologies. My allergies are crazy. All right. Let's see here. Which board game would make the next best beer pong style drinking game? That is a good question. I don't drink much anymore. So I don't typically play drinking games, although I did when I was younger. And obviously, it doesn't have to be alcohol. You could play a drinking game with soda or water or juice, anything like that too. But I don't really know. I feel like it would probably be a dexterity game of some kind. That's the next best. Maybe Flick 'em Up would be fun if you did that as a beverage game. Let's see here. Solomon Kane was super popular on Kickstarter, especially for their intro video. I need to watch it. Okay, well, I'm going to have to check that out. If it is still on Kickstarter, I will try and take a look at it. Ascendancy is fantastic and not as random as it's made out to be. Thank you, Clarence. I am glad that someone else agrees with me. I recognize it can be random, but I think if you do the setup properly, it's not as bad as people, tend to say that it is. So... Ambi also wants to try the graphic novel adventures. So if anybody out there has review copies of those that they want to send me an Ambi, I guess we're interested. Oh, Jesse said Kardashians? No, not Kardashians. Cardassians. It's a funny joke to make though, and I know the internet's made that one a few times. I'm all Adam is here for potential CP cosplay research. Adam has talked about cosplaying as me at a convention at some point, and I think that would be funny because Adam and I are good friends, and therefore it is not creepy at all. Oh my gosh. Hey, James said he's rereading rules for a game again this morning, and he plays it often. So good job, James. I think, honestly, that's a thing that I don't do enough, and I imagine other gamers are in the same boat. Once you feel like you know a game, there's no reason to get out the rule book unless somebody has a question. But I think that there is some value in getting that rule book out more often and just reading through it. You know, it'll be quick because you already recognize everything, but I think that there's some value there. The sand is still moving. It's looking quite lovely. I wonder, let's see here. I'll try and hold it up closer so y'all can see. It's really pretty. And yeah, I got this for free at the glass gallery. All the sand. I'm weirdly entranced by things like this. I loved lava lamps and other such toys when I was growing up. I actually recently listened to an episode of the How Stuff Works podcast where they talked about lava lamps, and it was really interesting hearing about how the lava lamp came into existence. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, go look up the How Stuff Works episode about lava lamps. I recommend it. It was good. Let's see. Garrett says there's a longer list of games that need a house rule versus games that are perfect as is. And oh my gosh, I'm missing so much chat. We're going to have to keep going down here. I look roasted. Adam knows how white, how pale I typically am. And this honestly is like very tan for me. Like I'm very, I'm not tan at all, but I am for me. So let's see. Clarence agrees with me about the rules tip that I gave earlier. Christopher says he's definitely had times where he messed up a rule in a game he plays a lot. Oh, and thank you for telling me that I'm awesome. You're awesome too. All of you are out there who are watching right now. And yeah, everybody should come watch Dice Tower tonight. It is every other Wednesday evening. It starts at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And this week, this coming Wednesday, is our next episode. So come watch. It's here on the Dice Towers YouTube channel. And it is Tom, Eric, and myself. And we have a lot of fun. Eric and I tend to get really nerdy. And Tom rolls his eyes at us being really nerdy. And we talk about board games that we've played recently. And then we have a game where Tom brings in 7 board games that are potential games that we'll have to review. And then we use a game system to narrow down what games we're going to review. And the chat gets to help out with that. So that is a lot of fun. Yay, other people who are Star Trek fans. Somebody said Star Trek conventions. I can't go for that with a winking face. I assume the wink means that you like Star Trek conventions, but so I'm going to go with that. And yes, Star Trek convention, awesome. The only problem is that the big Star Trek convention that happens here in Las Vegas, where I live, happens at the exact same time as Gen Con every year. So I've never been to Gen Con, but I obviously would like to go. And especially now that I'm part of the Dice Tower more formally, I will probably be going to Gen Con in the future, but that means I'm going to have to miss the Star Trek convention, which is kind of a bummer. So James said he found out he had got a rule wrong on Harvest Dice, and it's a simple game, just read right over it. I honestly think that happens to a lot of us in like all the time. I imagine it's not that the rules are poorly written or poorly structured. Sometimes we're human and we just miss things. So where am I in watching all of the Star Trek? I'm so sorry. My voice is the worst right now. So I rewatched all of Next Generation. I rewatched all of Deep Space Nine. And right now I am in the middle of season 5 of Voyager. And I've never watched all of Voyager. I've missed a bunch of it. So I've gotten into stuff now that I didn't really see when it aired live. And even though because of Janeway's appearances in other Star Trek related things, I have an idea what happens at the end of Voyager. I technically don't know what happens at the end of the show. I do, but I don't. I don't know how anything is going to play out specifically. And I'm really excited to discover that because I'm a big Trek fan, but I've just never watched through every single episode of every single show like I'm doing now. And so I'm getting to discover new stuff, which is really wonderful. And Voyager, the early seasons are a little shaky, more so than some of the other shows, but these later seasons have been so good. And it's funny, I was actually talking with somebody a couple of days ago while I was on the cruise about Star Trek and how, or no, it was last night when I was over at my friend's house. We were saying that like a lot of the things that annoyed me about Star Trek when I was a kid, I actually find often are my favorite parts of it now, especially alien characters. I wasn't a big fan of Odo and Quark on Deep Space Nine when I was a kid. I didn't like Neelix on Voyager when I was a kid. And all of those characters are some of the best roles in their respective shows. So I'm not quite sure why that is. But yeah. Hi, Kabuki Kid. You said hi probably forever ago. I'm still scrolling through the chat. Let's see. Is there a Star Trek game that focuses more on exploration and less on combat? I mean, Ascendancy can be about exploration. It's only about combat if you make it about combat. Because there are ways you can play Ascendancy without fighting anybody, technically. There are two different win paths in Ascendancy. One of them is through Ascendancy tokens, and the other is through controlling the other player's home worlds. So obviously, if you go for that second one, you have to fight people because you need to take over their planets. But if you play to just get Ascendancy, you can literally just explore, find planets, gather resources, and build up your culture. And then as you collect more culture, that gets you more Ascendancy tokens. So I would say Ascendancy is probably the best example of one that can be purely exploration based. But most of the Star Trek games do tend to have fighting in them. Star Trek Fleet Captains is one. Wait, yes. I think that's the one I'm thinking of. I've played and also enjoyed, but is definitely about battling. Star Trek Panic, which was the re-theme of Castle Panic, is a tower defense style game where you're trying to defend the Enterprise against hordes of people coming in to attack you. I do not like that one at all. I know some people do, but I found a couple of specific things in it that were horribly unbalanced or, in my opinion, poorly designed aspects of the game. And so I really just did not enjoy that one as much. I know that there is a new game that just came out recently, and the name is not coming to my head at this moment. It's a re-theme of an older game, but it's themed now as a Ferengi game. And Tom did a review of it here on the Dice Tower channel if anyone wants to look it up, or if somebody wants to drop the name of the game in the chat, which I'll see in a few minutes when I scroll down to the bottom of the chat. So yeah, it's a Ferengi-based trading game. It's about money, collecting gold-pressed latinum, obviously, since you're Ferengi. I know that's not obvious to anyone who doesn't know Star Trek, but obviously it's gold-pressed latinum that you're collecting. Vegas local shout out. Shout out to Little Shop of Magic and Shall We Play Game Stores. I've been to both of those places. Fleet Captains is half exploration. Okay. Oh yeah, because you do have to find, you move forward on the map and you uncover things. I've only played Fleet Captains once, so it's been a little while. But but then you end up fighting each other in that game pretty inevitably. Let's see here. OMG, she is a superhero. Who, me? I don't know what I did. This is why not keeping up with the chat live makes it very, it must have been when I put my arm behind my back. Yeah, clearly I'm a superhero in disguise. Oh my goodness. The ability to communicate with corn. Kabuki, I don't get it, but I'm sure that there was a really funny joke that I missed based on something else in the chat or something else I said. Let's see here. Oh yeah, James also gave Ambi a shout out for her 18xx videos on the Dice Tower. They're awesome. Ambi's the best. If you all didn't know that, she's been my co-host now on Board Game Blitz for 2.5 years, and we've known each other now for a little more than 3 years. We were two strangers who met on Reddit. I am so lucky that I found such a brilliant partner to work with. And I cannot say enough good things about her. Ambi is so talented and so wonderful. And if you haven't gone over to her personal YouTube channel to look at her song parodies about board games, you should do that also. Go to the Ambi Rona YouTube channel and look up her song parodies, because she's also a really talented singer. In addition to everything else, she's the best, basically. So... and I'm not scrolling down to the chat to see what she's saying in response to any of that. No, I'll scroll down eventually. This is the first brunch video that Geek has seen live. I'm really good at this live thing. Enjoy watching you on The Tonight Show with the guys, but I'd like to see more of you on the channel. That is the plan, Geek. I am working on it. It is tough for me scheduling-wise. I'm a very, very busy gal, unfortunately, and so that makes making videos tough. If anyone knows how I can turn making board game videos into a full-time job, I would be more than willing to listen to how to make that happen. But unfortunately, my day job pays me decently, pretty well, and it's hard to give that up as much as I love doing board game content. So I am going to continue doing both for the foreseeable future. But yes, I would like to put out more videos. And once I get the game show up and running, I swear you all are going to love it. It's going to be the best thing ever. I'm very excited about what I've got planned for that. And I'm just going to keep teasing it like a jerk, apparently, because I haven't been able to, yeah. Let's see. Oh, Adam was telling James not to encourage Ambi about the 18xx games. Adam's almost convinced to play one now. That's awesome. I think everybody should play an 18xx game at some point just to try it out, because a lot of people just are not familiar. I played one with Ambi back a year and a half ago now, I think. It's been a little while. And I won, which was odd. That was only because Ambi's husband, Toby, was helping me quite a bit. But it's not a style of game that is for me, but I really appreciated having the opportunity to try it out. And it was a lot of fun to play with them. So I still enjoyed the experience, even though it is not a style of game that I'm typically going to gravitate toward. But I feel like I'm a more well-rounded gamer for having tried it. I like, especially because I have to talk about board games here on this channel, I feel like I should be knowledgeable about games, even ones that I don't like or don't play often. So I'm trying to do that for your all's benefit. I will sometimes play a thing that maybe I'm not keen on playing. And what's great is sometimes I'll discover a gem that I didn't know I was going to love by doing that. So let's see. So more talk about Solomon Kane. I'm still, let's see here. Oh, I scrolled too far. Oh, wow. There's a lot of chat that I'm missing. You all are talking up a storm. I love it. Let's see here. Graphic novel books. We talked about those some more. Kinetic art, like that sand thing, but the weirdest one. Oh, yeah. If at Essen they had kinetic sand art of some kind like this, man, if you had like like a meeple shaped thing, like wouldn't like with different colors, you could like get your favorite player color, but if it had like sand or water or a meeple shaped lava lamp or something, I don't know. Like, I feel like those would do really well. I would definitely buy it. I mean, assuming the price was right, because this stuff just, I don't know. It's pretty. It's fun to look at. Let's see here. As an expert on cosplaying as other people, so tell that guy to message me on my Facebook. Adam, apparently somebody wants to help you become me. And that is a phrase I never thought I would say in my whole life. So we'll just more tan jokes. That's what, okay. I get it now. Let's see. If you live in some place this hot, you don't actually want to go into the sun because you'll be burnt to a sizzle. Yeah, it's pretty hot here in Vegas most of the time, including still now. Like, come on, it's almost October. We're almost there. It's going to get cool this week, I think, finally. Vegas needs to know how to spread out the nerd. I don't know. I feel like Vegas there's nerd everywhere in Vegas. And Vegas is a town masquerading as a city because everybody knows everybody in this town. Even though there's 2 million people that live here, you know how there's that 6 degrees of separation thing in Vegas? I honestly believe it is no larger than 2 or 3 degrees of separation from any person in Vegas to any other person in Vegas. Everybody knows everybody. It's crazy. I cannot go anywhere without finding a person that knows another friend of mine. It's so weird. And it's never been like that in any other city I've lived in, even cities of a similar size. Kabuki Kid finally played Welcome to, probably now his favorite roll and write or flip and write game. Yes. So I'm trying to think, there's a name that the Draft Mechanic podcast came up with for those games that fits both if they're roll and write or flip and write. And I'm going to have to look it up now. Rando Writers, I think. I believe I'm not going to look it up. I think that's what it is. I think they came up with the term rando writers because you're always writing something, but what the randomization mechanic in those is sometimes different. So shout out to Jake and Danielle on the Draft Mechanic podcast. I think that's a cool term that they came up with, and it fits everything. But I'll still call most games roll and writes just out of habit, I would imagine. Do Star Trek red shirt officers have much more trouble getting life insurance? You know, they probably do, but it's hard to say. Let's see. I live in Vegas and miss BGG Con Spring because of punk rock bowling here in Vegas, and it saddens me. Yeah, I've heard of punk rock bowling. We will not see DS9 on Blu-ray the way things look. That is true. They have talked about the cost being too prohibitive to releasing DS9 on Blu-ray like they did with Next Generation because they have to remaster all of the footage to be able to do that. But one cool thing, so Ira Steven Behr, who is the showrunner of Deep Space Nine, and a bunch of the other people who were involved in making the show are currently working on a documentary about Deep Space Nine. And for that documentary, they are remastering bits and pieces of the show. So there will be little bits of Deep Space Nine that we're going to get to see in HD for the first time ever, sometime later this year, I believe. Although I would not be surprised if it gets pushed to 2019. They were talking about it at the Star Trek convention, but I would love to see all of Deep Space Nine in HD, and I just know it's not going to happen. So let's see here. Top 5 Hall & Oates songs. Oh, man, that's hard. I love Hall & Oates. Hall & Oates was #1 on the charts the day that I was born. So that's a really difficult question for me to answer. Hold on. I'm gonna pull up a list just so I have lots to pick from. Maneater is probably #1. Even though that one wasn't the #1 song when I was born, but Maneater is my favorite. It's one of my favorite songs to karaoke as well. So we're going to go best Hall and Oates songs. And we're going to look up a list. Oh, You've Lost That Love and Feelin'. I mean, come on. Who doesn't like that scene in Top Gun, right? Like, that's so good. Rich Girl is really good. Kiss on My List. Private Eyes. Oh, I can't go for that. Okay, you can't make me pick 5. I love Hall & Oates. Like, I know, they're so good. Maneater is definitely #1. I'm going to say, Out of Touch is good too. Okay, I'm going to go, I can't go for that, #2. Private Eyes, #3. Rich Girl, #4. And Out of Touch, #5. That's just my gut reaction. But honestly, I love Hall & Oates. It's all good. So Rachel asked how old I am. And I know that some people think it's impolite to ask anyone how old they are, let alone a woman, which seems silly because all people are people. I am 33 years old, and I don't mind discussing that because I'm not ashamed of how old I am. So that is how old I am. I was born in 1984. I will be 34 in December. So feel free to send me some birthday wishes about a week before Christmas, December 17th. I had to grow up getting presents from my relatives that were, here's your birthday/Christmas present. And I was like, aw, every time. Such a bummer. Even though I was 8 days away, it still didn't work. That's okay, though. I just like getting presents. I mean, I do know that there are people who don't like getting presents. I'm not one of them. I think it's the best. Even if it's little, it doesn't have to be like, I don't need big or significant stuff, but I just love getting new things, surprises, excitement. It's so great. So, let's see. Oh, right. Kabuki Kid says he thinks it's odd that in Star Trek they used Latinum as a currency after establishing that they're a society without capitalism. So the Federation has done away with currency, but other parts of the universe have not. So that is why Latinum still exists. And there are other forms of currency that exist in the Star Trek universe as well. And the Federation recognizes that because other societies do use currency, that there is still value in them having some of it, but the Federation itself does not use currency. Like, people don't get paid for their work, and they don't pay for the things that they need to live. It's all just kind of there, which seems crazy and also wonderful. So Star Trek Galactic Enterprise was the name of that Ferengi game. Thank you so much to Michael for putting that in the chat. Let's see here. Oh, yay. Ambi said nice things about me too, forever ago, probably. My goal is to take over the Dice Tower. That is not my goal. Although I wouldn't be mad. No, Tom and Sam and Z and Eric and Mandy and Suzanne are all doing phenomenal work on their respective shows. So definitely make sure that you're listening to or watching all the videos, listening to the podcasts. Mandy and Suzanne especially, their podcast episodes are so good. And it's really, like, I love Tom and I love Eric, but it's so nice to hear other people's opinions on games. And it's really especially cool when they talk about the same games that Tom and Eric have talked about, because sometimes they have different opinions on them. And I think that that's really awesome. So if you haven't checked out their episodes of the Dice Tower podcast, make sure you go and do that. Let's see. I've mentioned you a couple times, Kabuki Kid. So probably is the answer to your question from earlier. Let's see. I'd love to see you and the other girls of Dice Tower do your own top 10 episodes. It feels like the guys are running on empty, and I think you gals would reinvigorate the format. Honestly, I don't want to speak for Ambi, Mandy, and Suzanne, because I am just me, and this is a question that was just asked of me. But I think all four of us would love to do that. The problem is all four of us live very far from one another. Ambi is in California. Mandy's in Canada. Suzanne is in Washington State, and I am in Nevada. So we, like, proximity wise, we could do it online via Skype, but there's something lost. I feel, I think the live, being able to interact with people sitting next to you is best. If we had a way, you know what, maybe I can see if we could do that on the Dice Tower cruise, because I'm fairly certain all four of us are going to be on the cruise. So if we could do the four of us doing a top 10 list on the cruise and record it and then put it out later, I think that would be really cool. So I will maybe throw that out as an idea. But I know that they already have a lot of the programming scheduled for the cruise. So if it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that they're not willing. It just might be that they already kind of have their plans set. But we'll see what we can do. I technically am running short on time if I'm going to do this as an hour only, but I can technically do whatever I want. So we'll see. I know I'm not at the bottom of the chat yet, but I think I'm getting close. Let's see. What is a game that I have played that has been a complete letdown? This is an easy one for me to answer because I was devastated by how much I did not like Fallout, the board game. I adore the Fallout video games. I love them so much. In fact, when we sat down to play the Fallout board game, I was wearing my Vault 111 hoodie, my Pip-Boy. I had my stuffed animal of dog meat, and I had a Brotherhood of Steel banner hanging behind me as we were playing. Like, I was all decked out in Fallout stuff, ready to go. And man, oh man, is that board game disappointing. I know a lot of people enjoyed it, but like, there are some key things in that game that they got wrong, in my opinion. The quests or the win conditions, the way you earn points, just fully broken in a number of ways. And then I also found that as you were trying to complete quests and side quests on the board, the way it was structured, sometimes one person would be on one side of the board and another would be on the other. And the next quest that gets drawn happens to be right next to that person. So you end up over here stuck doing nothing the whole time. And it was just horribly disappointing. I know that they're coming out with an expansion for it. I doubt it's going to fix it for me. I want it to. I want to love that game so much. I was heartbroken when I didn't love that game. But yeah, so that was my biggest disappointment in recent past, at least. Have I played Welcome to? You know what? I haven't, and I really want to. I really, really, really want to. So next time someone sees me and has a copy of it with them, grab me and let's play it, because I've heard nothing but good things. Let's see here. No currency always struck Toronto 1967 as bizarre. What's the point of being a captain over a crewman? So in the future, in this, not real future, but this, idealistic future, being a captain over a crewman is about wanting to better yourself and wanting to better humanity as a whole. And that's kind of the ideals that people within the Star Trek Federation are living for, is you're not working to earn a paycheck, you're working to better yourself. And I honestly think that that's a really cool ideal for people to work toward. Whether we'll actually ever get there or not, I don't know, but I think it's still pretty neat. So let's see. Female top 10 on the cruise. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so Brant said he wants to see it. And I think, oh wait, am I at the bottom? I think I'm at the bottom of the chat. I might have caught up right at 10:30, which is kind of crazy. I did want to talk briefly about the games that I played when I was on the cruise. So I mentioned Sprawlopolis earlier, but what I did, I brought a few games with me, but like this box was really helpful while I was on my cruise this past week. So this is the box for Blood of an Englishman, which is very small, as you can see. It is smaller than my head, kind of. But it is not just Blood of an Englishman in here. I have Blood of an Englishman. I have Hanami Koji, which is another really awesome 2-player game. And all that requires is cards and tokens. And there's more cards in here, but that one. So I have that in here. I have Sprawlopolis in here, which I mentioned earlier. So I have all the cards for Sprawlopolis. I have all of the cards and the instructions for Circle the Wagons, which is another button shy game, another 18-card game. And then, of course, I do have Blood of an Englishman in here as well. So I had 4 games. So here's the cards for Blood of an Englishman. This one is actually the most cards of all of them. There's a decent number of cards for this, but it's only slightly bigger than a regular, I think, 52 deck of cards. So it's not that bad. So yeah, I had 4 games in this little box. And I picked games specifically that work well or with 2 players or are 2 players only. And then my husband and I were able to play these. I literally just carried around in my tiny purse, and we played on the cruise ship. We played when we were docked at port, like in Mexico. We were at a restaurant waiting for our food, and so we broke out Sprawlopolis and played it. And I think it was great. So if anybody ever wants to take games with them, make sure, take out the inserts in these boxes. Like Blood of an Englishman came with a plastic insert, and I just stitched it immediately. And then I was able to fit 3 other games in there with it. So that was pretty cool. Let's see here. Otter Kramer says, please do a top 10 games the guys are wrong about. That would be a lot of fun. And I feel like Ambi, Mandy, and Suzanne would be down for something like that. So I'm going to have to add that. I'm literally going to type it into my brunch notes right now on my own computer. Top 10 games the guys are wrong about. We'll have to consider that. I think that sounds like fun. Let's see here. Stratomatic baseball card dice game has been around since 1961, yet gets ignored by game reviewers with a sad face. Garrett, I am not familiar with that game. Do you happen to know if it is still in print? That tends to be the reason that game reviewers don't cover a game, is if it's not easy to get a hold of. Especially for somebody like me, people don't just send me games very often. I've gotten a few review copies. For instance, at Dice Tower Con, Carla Kopp was kind enough to give me a copy of her game, Stellar Leap, which I really, really enjoyed. So I have gotten a few review copies, but honestly, not very many. I know Tom gets lots. But for a lot of board game reviewers like me, I have to buy all my own games, which is totally fine. I do this because I love it. I do it because I'm passionate about it. But like, if that game from 1961 isn't readily available and easy to get a hold of, I'm probably never going to get a chance to play it. So I think that that's something interesting to consider. Like, if a game reviewer isn't covering something, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to. Sometimes it just means that it's difficult. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to skip a couple of questions because I know that we're running it. Well, we've already run out of time. I can technically go as long as I want if you all want me to. So, someone asked what kind of metal my straw is made out of. I believe that this is stainless steel. I do try and use reusable straws when possible. There are definitely, straws have value. This is like a weird, platform that I've been like, what is the term when you want to like talk about something? I don't know. Like, everybody's talking about banning straws right now, and plastic straw waste is a big problem. But the funny thing is, I think the pendulum is swinging too far the other direction too quickly. Just if you see people wanting to ban straws outright, just make sure that they are aware that there are people who have physical limitations who straws are very, very beneficial for. So just consider that. Like, yes, plastic straw waste is horrible and sea life is being damaged by it. We should reduce the number of plastic straws we're using. I am trying to help with that by using metal straws here at home, especially. But there are people for whom straws are very important, and it gives them the ability to consume beverages more easily. So just pass that information along if anybody's talking about how all straws should be banned no matter what, because I've heard that, and I think that that is not the right line to take in this instance. So let's see here. Guys versus girls top 10. That would also be fun. I'm sorry, I'm catching up on the chat. Above and Below is a great game that the trio doesn't like. You know, it's interesting. I played Near and Far first, and I have not played Above and Below. And I've heard from most people that Near and Far is the better Ryan Lockett game. So I haven't been super keen to try Above and Below, but that's not to say I wouldn't be willing to try it. Kabuki Kid says, I'm a weirdo. I never liked straws. I will drink anything out of a straw. Like, I prefer straws to non-straws everywhere I can. So I admit that I've been part of that problem of plastic straw waste. So especially in restaurants, I guess it somehow feels less germy to drink out of a straw than to put my mouth onto a cup that other people's mouths have been on. Even though the liquid is still in that same cup, I don't know, like, cleaning practices at restaurants aren't always great. And so I feel like drinking from a straw makes me feel better in case the cleaning practices aren't good. I don't know. There's no logic here. Just use paper straws. Yes, a few restaurants here in Vegas that I frequent have started using paper straws. They get a little bit mushy after a while, but generally they work great and they're compostable. So that's pretty cool. James said he heard an NPR story on the straw argument. Yeah, it's a big thing right now. I believe California just passed legislation that they are not allowed to give out plastic straws unless they are asked. So they don't just hand them out freely anymore, or they won't be at a certain point, which is not a horrible way to do it necessarily. Let's see. Ambi prefers not straws, but if they put ice in it, then straw is easier. That also makes sense. Because, yeah, if you have a lot of ice at the top of a cup, then it's hard to get to the beverage itself. Otter says, I have both Above and Below and Near and Far. They're very different games, and I really could not pick a favorite. Okay, that's awesome to know. I'm willing to try Above and Below. I just haven't gotten around to it. So I'm going to have to do that. Oh, and I missed earlier from Garrett that the Stratomatic baseball game is absolutely in print every season of all 4 sports. That is interesting. So what type of game is it? I don't know. I'll have to look it up. All right, folks, I've already run 10 minutes over my generally allotted time. So I think I'm going to go ahead and let you go. But thank you so much for watching Board Game Brunch, my live Q&A. I am Crystal Pisano. You can catch me every 2 weeks on Dice Tower Tonight. Our next episode is this coming Wednesday, which is I'm going to look at the date. It will be October 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I will be there with Tom and Eric, and we will be talking all about all the games and all the fun stuff that you want to hear about. And maybe they'll ask me questions about my cruise. I don't know. But until next time, this show has been provided by the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is only made possible by viewers like you. Thank you for your continued support. And this show specifically is produced just by me, and I'm just winging this outro. I never write an outro for myself, and I feel like maybe I should at some point. But I really appreciate all of you joining me today, and I hope that you will come watch me on the other shows here on the network. Go check out Ambi's 18XX series of videos, and stay tuned for other fun things coming from the Dice Tower later this week, this month, and this year. And until next time, I will say, as we always do, have fun gaming. Bye, everyone.